Believe it or not, and why would you believe it? The New York Times says that Democrats need more help from the media. Yeah, it's a self-reflection time. You know, the New York Times is looking at their coverage and how it was so utterly biased that it became election interference and how they've lost massive numbers of subscribers. And the same thing has happened to MSNBC and CNN. The ratings are in the toilet. So that's not what they're thinking about. That's not going to change a bit because they're making money in other ways. But yeah, the New York Times has a piece saying that Democrats, they just need more help from the media. They're just not getting enough. We'll talk about that. We'll also look at a really brilliant video where a guy identified a magic word and changed it with another word, a more accurate word. The magic word is democracy, which used to mean something. It doesn't mean anything anymore in the era of the Democrats. And this guy identified it and made a video that I think can explain the deep state and what the people like Mitch McConnell, who is a deep stater, what he means when he says that Trump is a threat to our democracy. It's a different word to which he's a threat. We'll get started with this with the help of our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@the-Todd-Herman-Show. Despite the fact that it's a censorship machine, it's a great place for us to reach the unreached. And of course, we specifically want to do that with the Word of God. Thank you, God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. No. From the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times in which God has decided we shall live. This is a simple thing a guy did, and it's something that can be very, very helpful to make sense of situations. You know, I used to talk a lot about political axioms that helped a lot of people understand things, such as the more loyal you are to a political party, the less that political party cares about you. Does it make sense? When they think they own you, why should they care? It's sort of like the equivalent of dating. Why give the milk for free was the very, very offensive way of referring to a woman's sexuality. Why give the milk for free? You know, buy the cow. Really gross way to refer to women, but you get the metaphor, right? So why give your loyalty for free to political parties? My suggestion is don't. Here's another one. Where there's a double standard, there's a hidden agenda. That's always true, because if you're treating one group of people differently than another, there's some agenda. And that agenda could be, well, I want that group to like me. I want to be part of the popular group, so I'm giving them things. And I'm not giving you things because I don't care. Well, that's a hidden agenda. It's maybe not one that's world-shattering. Now, the other is this. Identify and replace magic words. So this is a new one, political axiom. It's a social axiom as well. Identify and replace magic words. This can really, really put people in their heels and offend them. And it's not my goal to offend. We're to be wise as serpents, gentle as doves. Jesus didn't walk around trying to offend. He was just offensive to some people because he was and is the truth. I'm not the truth. I try to speak the truth. You're not the truth either. We try to speak it. So when I said to a journalist years ago during a discussion, she came on our show. We were doing a pre-record. So we were in one of the production studios doing a pre-record. It was about this diktat in California where companies had to put women on their boards of directors. They had to have a specific percentage of their boards of directors be women. And this lady worked for one of the tech publications. And I said, does that include men who pretend to be women? And she said, you mean trans women? I said, no, I don't. I mean men who pretend to be women. Right, trans women. No, I mean men. And so do you. Well, it was stalemate. But for the people listening, the stalemate was useful. People who want to believe that men are women can listen to that and go, oh, look at the radical, bitter-clinging buffoon. But people who do not want to be taken in by magic words can stop and go, wait, a trans woman is a man? And believe it or not, there are people who don't know that. So we identify magic words. Debt ceiling, we don't have one. We don't have ceiling. Anytime they say debt ceiling, just replace it with no ceiling. There is no debt ceiling because you don't raise ceilings time and time and time again. It doesn't exist. The Social Security lockbox, that doesn't exist. That money's not locked up. It's absolutely leveraged. It's borrowed against. It's bankrupt. Our border, we don't have one. People talk about a southern border. You mean that line in a map? You mean our southern entry gate? It's not even a gate. Our southern entry point? Our northern entry point? When you call things what they are, you clear things up. Deep state's a scary thought for people. They don't want to believe the deep state exists. But everybody sees that bureaucracies exist. Everybody sees that. So when you talk about bureaucracies and bureaucrats, what are you actually talking about? The permanent government. It's a non-elected government, and it's permanent. It never goes anywhere. It's not beholden to elections anymore, and it knows it. There's great fear about AI becoming, actually self-alert, being the thing that puts us in the Terminator age where the technology is trying to kill us. Well, that might happen. I doubt it, but it might. But the bureaucracy is self-aware. They do understand they're more powerful than presidents and senators and congressmen. So why would they not exert that power? Why would they, as creatures of government, as creatures of the deep state, not say, wait, we're the democracy? I mean, we're the ones who are here permanently. We're the ones who bring stability. Yeah, I mean, there's Nancy Pelosi's who are in office for 450 years. But then again, vampires don't die. But then there's people, average congressmen, 3-4 terms, bye-bye. Couple of Senate terms, bye-bye. Presidents at best 4-8 years, bye-bye. But you have swamp creatures who are there forever. It's a permanent government. So a guy did a fantastic job of identifying the magic word democracy and replacing it. And I'll show you this video because this is so smart and so well done. A lot of wisdom went into this. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible and in God's design for our bodies. And in the Bible, there's a lot of sacred herbs that are spoken of time and time and time again for healing and for prayer and for thanks to God for providing them. I mean, there is a reason that the wise men, so-called, brought Jesus herbs and spices because they were difficult to come by. And it's not just because they made food taste good. It's because they're useful for the body. There's a guy named Dr. Patrick Gentempo, and he discovered that the Bible holds profound healing knowledge. He discovered this when he was on a trip to the Holy Land, walking where Jesus Christ walked. So he began to take a scientific approach to taking these sacred herbs and putting them into this. This is wisdom. And it's a small little bottle of this, and it's based in an oil. Take it orally, and it helps you with an immune response, detoxification, healthy response to inflammation, because inflammation can help your body if you have a healthy response to it. Helps restore vitality, and it helps create a sense of calm. He is a scientist, so he wanted to use world-class techniques to bring about purity. So he does. It's triple tested for purity. It's infused with light and sound frequency. It's cold crafted in small batches. Why? Because it allows them to maintain the potency and the efficiency. I fell in love with this. Ask Radio America Sales to get in touch with these guys. They're here. Want to know why? Because the team at Wisdom, the leadership team, had already known about the show. They watch and they listen. So I can tell them face to face, you guys, thank you. Excited to be doing business with you. You can try this for yourself right now and experience the power of wisdom. Right now, go to trywisdomnow.com/Todd. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. You can stock up on wisdom for an incredible 33% off. Plus, they will waive the shipping fee. You do not pay shipping. The shipping is free. Trywisdomnow.com/Todd. That's trywisdomnow.com/Todd. There is a lot of wisdom that went into this. I don't know that this gentleman thinks in terms of magic words, but he sure did identify one. He used an AI speech program to replace the word democracy with the word bureaucracy. Bill D'Agostino did this. Bill is a videographer at thegreatnewsbusters.org.
If the Democrats fail, it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack.
They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.
It's a beautiful, beautiful job. And you see the nature of the magic word. It's almost shocking. And it's difficult for me to be shocked because I'm a pretty cynical person, having been around politics all these years. But that's really what they're talking about. That is the war. And what people in the swamp absolutely recognize is that President Trump does not respect the bureaucracy. And this is a consequence of overreach. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's a scary thing for them. He doesn't fear the bureaucracy. They came at him with everything the bureaucracy had. And he survived. They came at him with the tools of assault, tenacious lies, and he survived it. Yep, they cut off his presidency in the first term with the bureaucracy. Of course, the constant claims that Trump was a Russian agent. They did it with bureaucracy speaking into media, telling the media you need to ban this because we're the bureaucracy. They did that all very deep state style, and he survived it. There's another tool of the bureaucracy, which they behind which they sometimes hide, and that is incompetency. Now, this is a theory. I fully admit this is a theory. I don't have any proof for this, but looking at patterns, you have to be incredibly incompetent to go to Butler, Pennsylvania as the Secret Service advance team and say, do not take the high ground. No matter what you do, do not put an Overwatch team on that water tower, which would be the Overwatch over the entire area. Leave that blank. Take the second highest point, closest to where the president's or the campaign's going to have the candidate speak. Take the second highest point and leave that open. Let a guy walk around with a rangefinder, taking angles from various shooting locations, and don't confront him. Once he's spotted on the rooftop, do not take him out. Do not pull the principal off the stage, even though you know there's a guy on a roof laying in the prone shooter position. Do not stop Trump from going out to speak. Don't put up plexiglass. Do not pull semi-trailers in front of the stage so that there is no vantage points you don't control, except for the water tower that you decided to give up. So he survived that. He survived Mar-a-Lago, where again, just go through the pattern recognition. Have we checked the perimeter? Nah, we're not into that. What? Yeah, we're not into that. We didn't check the perimeter. What about that one spot where the paparazzi always goes to take pictures of President Trump, that one spot that everybody knows about? Did we check that? No. How long has it gone unchecked? 18 hours. Could someone be hiding there? Sure. So one of the tools of the bureaucracy is incompetency. Well, they're just buffoons. Maybe they were. But President Trump survived that. So he doesn't need to fear the bureaucracy because the bureaucracy put everything on him. Hunter Biden doesn't need to fear it anymore because he's been pardoned. Although you see that the special counsel's pushing back on that. They don't think those charges should be dropped, and that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. So let's watch again this video from Bill D'Agostino from Newsbusters, and let's think in this phrase. Let's think like them. Let's not think like us. To the degree that you can, put yourself in the mind of someone who's been in the Beltway for 35 years. This is your city. It's your plan. It's your power. These are your people. You have convinced yourself that you are the only thing that keeps the United States from falling apart. Not Congress, not the Senate, not the stinking people in flyover country. Remember the mindset. This is not a guess. There's that book called What D.C. Gets Wrong. Pollsters polled the people in D.C. Instead of them polling us, they turned the polls towards staffers in D.C. Staffers in D.C. think very few of us own homes because, of course, we can't figure out how to buy one. They think about 50% of the population is LGB or so-called T. They think we have far less money, and they think that we understand government far less than we do. They don't think we even understand the roles of the various government agencies. They don't get us at all. I think we get them, but maybe not enough. So put yourself in the mind of someone who is an FBI director or an EPA director or whatever alphabet agency director, and you know you're the only people who keep the United States from falling into chaos. And then think about Trump and think about him having survived every effort to take him out. Now watch this video.
If the Democrats fail, it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack.
They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger.
We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.
Brilliant, brilliant job. I don't know that Bill thinks in terms of magic words, but don't you agree he's identified one? So in a second, let's go through some of the things the bureaucracy is doing, but let's start with this statement from the New York Times, because they insist that Democrats need more help from the media, because having the bureaucracy eating into the media, telling the media what to do has not been enough. They need more power. I just got a really powerful and very cool note this morning. Quick text from Steve Anderson, who runs Renew Healthcare. He and his partner, James, do that. I should be fair. James just takes a behind-the-scenes role. So Steve Anderson is the managing director. And he sent me this note and said, hey, meeting with some of your listeners down here this morning. Awesome people, wonderful folks. Thank you for the partnership. So I actually don't know who's down there right now. I have a guess because I know there's a longtime listener-viewer who's going down, but I think he's going down in January. So I'm going to send Steve a text back after the show and ask if he could introduce me to the folks. Maybe we can do a Zoom call down there. I can't emphasize enough how much you should look at the return on investment in this. I'll be honest with you. I always am. These guys can't take insurance because insurance is owned by pharma and pharma is owned by insurance. But I want you to think about an ROI. If you're my age, you're in your 50s, and you have been confronted with a situation where it's pain and numbness and mobility limitations, no skiing, no walking, no biking, or a whole battery of surgeries. Yep, your insurance will pay for the surgeries, and then they'll even pay to the point where you can get up off the toilet without screaming. Or, like an insurance company, you blow up a shoulder. Hey, when you can open a jar of peanut butter, you're cured. I mean, never mind that prior to that, you like to play basketball or golf. They don't care. So think about quality of life. And then understand this, that these stem cell treatments at Renew.Healthcare are not as expensive as people want to imagine unless you go the full infusion route. And I'll admit, that's a pretty expensive ride. Few people could afford that, but people who can, my goodness, to have 45 million or so stem cells from umbilical cords and placentas pulsing through your body, identifying hot spots and going in and destroying inflammation, and then rebuilding tissue wherever it needs to be rebuilt. That can be cartilage, it can be muscle, it can be tendon. That's incredible. For those of us who don't have those means, the targeted use of these stem cells into shoulders, into knee capsules, shoulder capsules, into areas where there's enough cartilage. You might be told that you're going to be bone on bone in a couple of years. No. Renew.Healthcare may be able to do a targeted stem cell treatment in your knee and regrow your cartilage, because that's what these stem cells do. So whether it's the much more affordable targeted or the less affordable but incredible infusion, find out. The ROI is your life and your comfort. Go to Renew.Healthcare, or it's RENUE.Healthcare, and they will tell you if they can help you, just like the folks who are down there now. Please tell the folks at Renew that you're part of the Todd Herman Show family. RENUE.Healthcare. So here's this headline from, guys, please consider the lack of self-awareness in this. The gray lady, the paper of record, as Rush used to call her, a piece in the New York Times. Republicans built an ecosystem of influencers. Some Democrats want one too. Democrats were badly outflanked online in the election, and progressive influencers are now trying to create a network to be a left-wing answer to Turning Points USA. You mean every single social media company save Twitter? You mean YouTube and Google and Microsoft and Bing and Reddit and Blue Sky? You mean everybody? So they spotlight Turning Point USA. The Democrats have the labor unions, or did, as turnout mechanisms until President Trump instituted the art of the deal, bringing about some things and changes in the party I don't care for, but he won. And maybe there's a way forward here. The New York Times pretending that the Democrats don't have a system of influencers. They do. They just don't work anymore because of the deep state. When Kamala Harris's people were out bribing Oprah and the so-called Reverend Al Sharpton to interview her, and they were bribing entertainers to go to her rallies to give inspiring speeches, reading from their iPhones, when they can barely understand what they worked so hard to create, it was ineffective because they're trying to overcome a bureaucracy which is ever more grasping and grasping and grasping at power. They have to get more desperate because they've seen that President Trump does not fear them. To the New York Times, you are the influencer of record. So is the Washington Post. So are the alphabet television networks. You just don't have the power you used to because you are backing up ideas that are insane. Here's an example. The city of New York pays $220 million to rent the entire Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan to house illegal immigrants. Well, that's bad. And the people see it. And people in New York are aware of it. They see the migrant vans going into the hotels. People who visit New York are experiencing it because an already very expensive place to visit has become more expensive because government is guaranteeing hotels like this a source of cash flow forever until they get around to sometime moving these illegal immigrants out. And maybe under President Trump, more don't get to come in. But there's something else to this. This hotel is owned by the government of Pakistan. This was part of a $1.1 billion IMF bailout, International Monetary Fund bailout, to help Pakistan from defaulting on their international debt. This hotel had been closed since 2020 and a long time struggled to get occupancy. I stayed in there once before it was closed. It was not a great hotel. It felt kind of flop house-ish, and that's hard to do in New York. I mean, there's some actual flop houses. When we were doing our last startup, I went and stayed in a youth hostel. There's a reason they're called hostel. I know it's spelled Hostel, but it's hostile. Bureaucracy. Think about this. City of New York. Bureaucracy. Sure, there's a mayor, but the bureaucracy's made this decision. The International Monetary Fund, did you elect them? Bureaucracy. ICE, bureaucracy. Customs and Border Patrol, Bureaucracy. Bureaucrats made this decision. Just as bureaucrats have said to Facebook and YouTube and some of the other networks that any talk of a purposeful flood of our borders is dis and misinformation. It is dis and misinformation that illegal immigrants commit crimes. It is dis and misinformation that we are seeing a greater flood of them. But we are, because of the Custom Border Patrol app where people just skip the border and fly into the country. Bureaucracy upon bureaucracy. There are people who set about to attack the bureaucracies long ago. They long ago identified the problem. It was in New York where I got called to a mystery meeting. This is when I was at the Republican National Committee, and I got invited to a off-the-record meeting behind closed doors, high up in a building in New York, with Peter Thiel's people. Now, I understand that Peter was going to be there, but he wasn't. We got our apologies. Peter couldn't make the meeting. Peter Thiel, one of the founders of PayPal, one of the most successful venture capitalists in the country, had started to dip into Republican politics, and he wanted to understand it. And he wanted to understand the people behind it. He was looking for a specific breed of person. When we had the meeting and we sat down, they asked us the most interesting question over lunch. Please take out a piece of paper and write down who you're backing for president as a Republican. But don't tell your neighbor. They collected the papers, and then the guy at the head of the table began to read the responses. Mitt Romney, Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, Sarah Palin. Looking around the room, when people started to hear the name Sarah Palin, you could observe some panicked looks on people's faces. And you could observe some smiles on others. I was one of those people who said Sarah Palin. I said that because I worked in D.C. and I saw the machine, but I knew I was in the room with a bunch of people who were the machine. They asked us to raise our hands if we were willing to admit the Sarah Palin submission. And there was a bit of silence because I think people were calculating. Like, maybe I should pretend I was one of the Sarah Palin people. But then I could see them, wheels turning, thinking, oh, wait, my social media page would show otherwise. There's no doubt Peter Thiel's people have looked at my social media. So the three of us who actually did say Sarah Palin raised our hands. I know I was one of them. I'm assuming the two other guys were honest. So Peter Thiel's people asked us, why? I said, because she is an outsider and only outsiders can see the stink, or rather smell the stink. Towards the end of lunch, someone said, you know what, this is a little bit unfair. You asked us, but we didn't get to ask you. So the guy who ran the meeting reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper that said Sarah Palin. So Peter Thiel went about taking this intellect with which God has gifted him and looking at the political realm and saying, how do we engineer a Trump victory? And unsurprisingly, it started with data acquisition. It started with understanding the voters the way he'd grown to understand us. I mean, in a much more detailed sense. And he began building an organization. He recently sat down with Barry Weiss to talk about what he thinks went on in the election. He's one of the billionaires, the billionaire class who, like Mark Zuckerberg, had that red pill moment. A lot of people are getting these red pill moments and getting very, very focused. We just had a discussion this morning in our discipleship group about the inability to focus during the holiday season. The inability to focus because people can become really emotional during the holiday season. Some people, it's a very stressful season. For others, it's a pretty depressing season. I mean, those of us who celebrate the Lord Jesus and his birth, we can intellectually look at this and say, oh my gosh, yes, the Lord is born. And we can have that just great joy of our Savior being born. And we can still suffer depression. Right? Those things can coexist. There's also, though, the busy nature of this holiday that can get people up into a situation where it's not even joyful, it's not even depressing, it's flat stressful. So what if I could give you an aid that could help make this less stressful? I can. It's called Magnesium Breakthrough. Magnesium Breakthrough does help people get into a state of sleep. It helps people stay asleep. It helps people digest food. It creates an optimal absorption in your body of food. And so many people, about 80% of Americans, are short on magnesium. And this is a blend of magnesium citrate, glycinate terate, and more. It's all 7 forms of organic magnesium. You can't find this in the China marts. That's all fake synthetic magnesium. And it also does this. It controls the stress hormone cortisol. When that's well controlled, you're far less likely to have stress and therefore far less likely to burn out. And when you're not stressed out during the day or far less stressed, you can actually have more bursts of energy. So do not let stress and burnout ruin your holidays. Get Magnesium Breakthrough from Bioptimizers and give your body the magnesium it craves. It's a perfect gift for you or your loved ones to get through the holiday season. Go now to Bioptimizers.com/Todd. Use code Todd to save an extra 10%. That's Bioptimizers.com/Todd. Use code Todd to save an extra 10%. So here is Peter Thiel, and he's talking with Barry Weiss on the mechanics of the election.
You know, in a way you can say in 2016, Trump beat the Republicans, the Bush Republicans, and he sort of maybe lucked out or snuck by Hillary, and she didn't take him seriously at all. You can't say that about 2024. Everyone knew it was going to be the Midwest states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. The Democrats gave it their all. They, spent 2 or 3 times as much money as Trump spent the last, 3-4 months, and it just didn't work. Certainly, the institutions tried to prosecute him criminally. They tried to take him off the ballot. They tried to stop him in every way possible. And so, unlike 2016, this time it was Trump against the Democrats. The Democrats gave it their all, and it just collapsed.
Yeah, it didn't just collapse. It was collapsed. It collapsed itself. I want to get to the second part of what Peter Thiel said on why people like Barry Weiss appear to be making their way over to the right-hand side of the political spectrum. People like Mike Lindell have been there for a very, very long time. Lindell had one of those things happen that seems only to happen to him. During this holiday season, there's a massive retail store that canceled an order with him. Now, this is hard for me to believe that this is not a setup. It wasn't something that was done to hurt him. A lot of people do not like the fact that Mike Lindell continues to speak out about his view on election integrity. It is his view that there isn't any. It is Lindell's view that the election was stolen in 2020. A lot of people don't like that. So I don't know if this retailer did that or not. Maybe it's just that they weren't getting this sell-through that they needed. But Mike got in touch with us and said, hey, we're going to bring about a special for this to help us move these pillows. We haven't talked about Mike in a long time. Right now, you can go to mypillow.com/Todd to get discounts on the entire classic MyPillow collection. Standard classic MyPillow is now $14.88. Queen size is $18.88. King size is $19.88. And body pillows, full body pillows, $29.88. And the multi-use pillows are $9.88. Of course, these orders come back with a money-back guarantee. And now through December 25th, we'll have the money-back guarantee extended through March 1st of 2025. So go now to mypillow.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get the standard MyPillow for only $14.88, the lowest price ever on these pillows. Use promo code Todd for discounts on the entire MyPillow collection. Grab a gift today. It says you deserve the best comfort at mypillow.com/Todd. And to answer your question, yes, I do have MyPillow. And yes, I just washed one of my MyPillows. And yes, it did puff back up to the original size. mypillow.com/Todd. Peter Thiel, talking with Barry Weiss, who had been one of the denizens of the New York Times. She's no longer allowed in polite society. She runs the Free Press, which has done super well. They talk about what happens, how people like her have come around to the side of Trump, or at least Trumpian ideas.
Of course.
But I know these things are overdetermined, but I keep thinking part of it is just this sort of straitjacket is not what you all signed up for. This intellectual straitjacket where you're not allowed to have ideas. Even if you agree with 80%, it's never enough. You have to be 100%. And one of the other metaphors I've used is that, the left, the Democratic Party, it's like the Empire. They're all Imperial stormtroopers. And, you know, we're the ragtag rebel alliance. And it's a uncomfortably diverse, heterogeneous group. And you have, you know, I don't know, a teenage Chewbacca and a Princess Leia type character. And then we have a autistic C-3PO policy wonk person. And it is it's a ragtag rebel alliance against the Empire.
It's people who made a career out of breaking systems. PayPal broke a system. The system was you had wires. You just wired between your banks. You had Western Union. Most people don't have any idea what that was. That was where you took cash to a building, you handed it to a person at the building, the person at the building put that in a safe, and then that person went to a computer to another Western Union and said, release cash to this person when they show up. It was a huge technical advance when you could do that through Walmart. You could send cash through Walmart. You went to a Walmart, you gave cash, and then a loved one could go to another Walmart and pick up, not the same dollars, but an equal amount. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and others looked at that system and said, that's stupid. So they built PayPal. What was Facebook? It wasn't breaking a system, it was creating one. But it was creating one that was based on what? Phone trees. There was Classmates.com, which is a place where every 10 years it mattered, because that's where you go find the people with whom you graduated high school. So they break systems. They break systems. Bureaucracies are systems. This is why they should fear Trump. So ever since there was this discussion between Joe Rogan and Mark Andreessen. And Andreessen talked about what he witnessed with the government saying, hey, don't even bother investing in AI companies because there's only going to be 3. We've already determined who they are, and we're going to control the entire marketplace. A China model. He talked about debanking. He had 39 founders. This is Mark Andreessen, multi-billionaire, had 39 of his company founders debanked. Other people have begun to speak out. David Marcus had run payments in crypto at Messenger, Facebook Messenger, at Facebook, the parent company Meta, and he led PayPal. He's also built 3 startups. He is a Silicon Valley stalwart. He talked about how a project called Libra was killed. Listen to this. I never shared this publicly before, but since Mark Andreessen opened up the floodgates on Joe Rogan's pod, it feels appropriate to shed more light on this. As a reminder, Libra, then Diem, was an advanced, high-performance, payment-centric blockchain paired with a stablecoin that we built with my team at Facebook, or Meta. It would have solved global payments at scale. Prior to announcing the project, we spent months briefing key regulators in Washington, D.C. and abroad. Not regulators, bureaucrats. We briefed the bureaucrats. We then announced the project in June 2019 alongside 28 companies. 2 weeks later, I was called to testify in front of both the Senate Banking Committee and the House Financial Services Committee, which was the starting point of 2 years of nonstop work and changes to appease lawmakers and regulators, bureaucrats, and lawmakers. By spring of 2021, yes, they slow-played us at every step. We'd addressed every last possible regulatory concern across financial crime, money laundering, consumer protection, reserve management, buffers, and so much more, and we were ready to launch. We'd worked on a slow rollout of a limited pilot that some members of the Fed's Board of Governors were supportive of. The Fed's Boards of Governors. Did you elect them? No, you did not. The Federal Reserve isn't even a government organization. At last, Chair Jay Powell was ready to let us move forward in a limited way. A private group that's not government, a for-profit group, the Federal Reserve, gave another company permission to move forward. Got it? The story as I heard it is that Jay Powell was told by his Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, at one of their bi-weekly meetings that allowing this project to move forward was political, and she would not have his back if he let it happen. I wasn't in the room when this conversation happened, so take these words with a grain of salt, but effectively, this was the moment Libra was killed. Shortly thereafter, the Feds organized calls with all participating banks, and the Fed's general counsel read a pre-prepared statement to each of them saying, quote, "We can't stop you from moving forward and launching, but we're not comfortable with you doing so." Just like that, it was over. That's a nice dry cleaner shop you all got there. Can't stop you from running it. Be a shame if it burned down. One essential point is worth making here. There was no legal or regulatory angle left for the government or regulators to kill the project. It was 100% a political kill, one that was executed through intimidation of captive banking institutions. That was the hardest part of the story for me personally. Not that we failed, but that America, this country I immigrated to and became a proud citizen of because its rule of law and value system behaved in such a way for political reasons. It was a very tough pill to swallow. The bright side of the story, though, was the many learnings from this wild ride. By the end of the project, we'd made so many concessions to get thumbs up that the whole design of the network became Frankenstein of our initial ambitions. We also learned the biggest lesson of all, which is that if you're trying to build an open money grid for the world, eventually moving trillions of dollars a day, designed to be here 100 years from now, you have to build it on the most neutral, decentralized, unassailable network and asset, which hands down is Bitcoin. And now, this is what many of us who went through this scarring journey are building together at Lightspark, and this time we won't stop until we get it done. A former crypto and fintech SVP at Visa responded. I can confirm Dem leader called Visa with similar message. Our crypto team had to backtrack our support. There are plenty of critiques of how Libra might work, but the fact that the experiment was not allowed to move forward was a huge step backward for the United States of America. But the Democrats need influencers. Now, the deep state has all the influence it needs. This is why it fears Trump. Now, since we're talking about banking and we're talking about Libra and how it was killed, I would say to David Marcus, thank you for coming out 10 years later. Why didn't you say so then? I believe you were already a multi-billionaire, sir. There are worse things than losing a job or even $1 billion. But thank you for coming out now. Rudy Giuliani, former mayor of New York, has some experience with the nation's banking system.
The reality is, I have no cash. It's all tied up. So right now, if I wanted to call a taxi cab, I can't do it. I don't have a credit card. I don't have a checking account. I have no place I can go take cash out except a little bit that I saved, and it's getting down to almost nothing. I have a business. I can do business expenses, but I'm very careful about that because God forbid I should make a mistake between a personal and a business expense. Unlike Hunter Biden, I go to jail right away. This is a pure application of the persecution of Trump, me, Bannon, Navarro, Professor Eastman, on and on and on. 100 people.
Why is he suffering this? Because he's a lawyer with an opinion. His opinion was the election was stolen. Now, let's say he was wrong. We punish wrong this way? We started this by talking about the New York Times saying the Democrats need an ecosystem, but they've got one. It's just crumbling because people have learned that Trump doesn't fear them. He doesn't need to. Therefore, maybe we don't need to. And yet, the people who are denizens of this all, D.C., people like Jake Sullivan, still don't get it. Jake was talking with Jen Psaki. And Jen, let's just remember, was working as a deep stater. She was a political hire. She was a press secretary for the figurehead. And she lied and lied and lied. And the whole time she was lying on our money, she was negotiating a deal with MSNBC. She had already agreed to her deal and the money while she was still press secretary. She was on stage behind that lectern taking questions from MSNBC reporters after she had agreed to work at MSNBC and not saying to the American people, incidentally, I should go ahead and disclose this person's now a colleague of mine. I've agreed to take a job at MSNBC. So she's talking to Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan, who worked for Hillary Rodham Clinton III. Jake Sullivan, who helped with the Benghazi lies. Jake Sullivan had this to say about the FBI.
I do want to ask you about President-elect Trump's decision to nominate Kash Patel as FBI director. I mean, as you know, he's a fierce Trump loyalist. He's vowed to go after the...
Hey, that's not Jen Psaki. That's Casey Hunt. Huge difference. Well, not really. I mean, she didn't work at the White House, but other than that, carbon copy.
Deep state. You have worked closely with the current FBI director. What do you think it would mean to have Kash Patel in that role?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak to President-elect Trump's nominees. I'll let him speak for his own rationale. What I will say is how the Biden administration has approached the position of FBI director. We inherited Director Chris Wray, who has done a very good job in the role, from President-elect Trump, who appointed him to a 10-year term. And what makes the FBI director different from most other nominees is they're not just appointed for one term of a president. They're appointed for enough time to last past 2 terms of a president because they're supposed to be insulated from politics. President Biden scrupulously adhered to that longstanding bipartisan tradition, and for a good reason, because the FBI director should not be subject to the whims of the twos and fro's of politics. But as for the announcement yesterday or the decisions President-elect Trump has made, they'll have to speak to that themselves.
I think they have, by their nominees, by who's going to come and run justice. Pam Bondi. Incidentally, one thing on Pam, I said it when she was nominated. She's mixed bag. She was the person who had nominated the sheriff in Florida, who has withdrawn as DEA head nominee 3 days after he was nominated, because it came about that he put pastors in jail for preaching during the lockdowns and a whole lot of other measures that simply aren't popular with anybody who supports President Trump. So that war in the Trump world is going to be really interesting. The deep staters and real people who look at the truth behind it. No, it wasn't. Lord, thank you for reminding us that you are the one true king, the unimpeachable king, the unelected king, because you've existed forever and always will exist. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind. Please make every effort to walk in the light of Christ.